Vince Carter holds the record for most NBA seasons played at 22. His 1,541 games played places him third all time on that list, behind only Robert Parish, 1,611, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 1,560. 403 of those games were played in Toronto, where he helped the franchise rise to national prominence and increase their notoriety. And now, his storied NBA career is over. Aaron Rose covers the Raptors for Sports Illustrated. He joined me this week to reflect on Carter's career, what he meant to the NBA and to the Raptors, and whether this year's team has a chance to repeat as champions when the league reconvenes in Orlando at the end of the month. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Rose says it's unfortunate that Carter's final season got short-circuited due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, he says that we all should take a nostalgic view on Carter's impact on the league, especially when it comes to the growth of Canadian basketball.
Well, I think as you mentioned, we knew this was coming. NBA fans knew it was probably going to be the result that Vince played his last game, and Vince knew it was probably going to be the result from the COVID-19 season's cancellation or hiatus. I think it's unfortunate that this is the way it ended, but if Vince is at peace with it, which it sounds like he is, then I think the rest of the basketball world should be. And I think now we get an opportunity to look back at what Carter's impact was on Raptors basketball, on Canadian basketball, and then basketball world everywhere, because he is certainly one of the most important basketball players, certainly in Canadian basketball history. So that's certainly something I'm happy to talk about, because he was a huge character in Canadian basketball.
Now, just to follow up, how big of an impact do you think he made on Canadian basketball? Because certainly he was sort of the catalyst to making sure that the Raptors in their infancy was part of the national conversation. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on the impact he had both in Toronto and across Canada while he was here.
Well, I can speak. I can say that there are very few people, if any, who have had a bigger impact on Canadian basketball. You can maybe count them on your hand, how many people have had the kind of impact he has had on Canadian basketball. Since his playing days here, Canadian basketball has grown in ways that people probably never saw coming. He turned a country that was a hockey country into a country that loves basketball. And we saw that in the streets of Toronto last year when the Raptors won the championship, and we've seen it with the strength of the Canadian national team. Although they are yet to break through on the Olympic level, you can look around the NBA and see the drafts that it seems like every year Canada has more and more basketball players entering the NBA, and these are some of the best players in the league. And that's a trend that, at least in part, goes back to how Vince Carter made it cool to play basketball. His high-flying dunks, the moves he made people want to watch basketball. And then people like myself, we lower the nets if we could, or we try and do the kind of things that Vince was doing. We try and do the 360s, and I could never do one, of course, but he made people want to try and do those things. So he certainly made basketball cool in this country, and I think we see the impact in the NBA and on courts around the city and around the country.
And what do you think his overall career will be defined by?
I think it will be defined by that dunk contest in 2000 that he won. The 360 dunk, the elbow in the hoop. When Raptors fans look back, it will certainly be that moment. And then when NBA fans look back, I think that's the moment that he put his name on the national level, on the international level, and really Raptors basketball took off to a level we hadn't seen before.
And tell me, what is your favorite Vince Carter moment?
Probably that one I mentioned before. Unfortunately, I think Raptors fans never got to see him break through in the playoffs the way that they had hoped. He, of course, missed that Game 7 shot against the 76ers, which would have been his iconic Raptors moment had he hit that. He didn't hit that, and I think Raptors fans will look back, myself included, as somebody who grew up a fan of the team, and it's that dunk contest that will define his career in Toronto.
Now, do you think the way he left Toronto will impact his legacy with the team at all?
Certainly. I think there are a lot of fans who will never forgive and never forget the way he left Toronto. Essentially forcing his way out. There are rumors he allegedly told Seattle Supersonic players the plays during one of the games, and then after he was traded, he did an interview and said he didn't push himself as hard as he probably should have in Toronto. I know there are fans who will never forgive him. I have friends who are fans who have yet to forgive him, and they just want to move past the Vince Carter era. But there are also fans who have moved on. Either they don't remember or those wounds have healed, and they want to see Vince Carter honored because of what he did for Canada basketball and Raptors basketball.
And what do you think the future holds for him? Do you think the organization will welcome him back at all, or what do you think is next for him? Because I know he hosts a podcast already. Should you see him in the media, back with the Raptors? What do you think of that?
I definitely can see him continuing his media career. As you mentioned, he hosts a podcast where he announced his official retirement with the Ringer, and he's been on The Jump before, and he's been on ESPN, so it seems like that's something he's interested in and something he'd be very good at. Obviously, he's been in the NBA longer than anyone else, so he can speak about kind of all these eras of NBA basketball. He played with Jordan, he played against Jordan, he played against LeBron, he played against guys like Giannis and Luka these days. So he's played with everyone. He can touch on kind of all those, all the different eras of NBA basketball, at least recently over his 22-year career. So I think he would be a great media member and somebody I'd certainly look forward to hear from in the future.
How do you think the game has evolved since his rookie season to his retirement? I guess it would be this month.
Well, I think we've seen the growth of three-point shooting is probably the biggest thing. And that was not something Vince was known for. Obviously, he was known for his high-flying dunks and kind of what he could do attacking the rim. But over the past 22 decades, basically, the three-point line has really become the focal point, it seems like, of so many offenses, and really either taking those outside shots because you get the extra point or attacking the rim. And when Vince Carter came into the league, it was all about the mid-range game and attacking the rim like he did. But that's probably been the biggest change over the past 2 decades.
And when we look at this upcoming resumption of this season, I'm just wondering your thoughts on whether you think the Raptors have a chance to repeat and where they stack up once the league resumes again in Orlando at the end of next month.
Well, I am not going to say the Raptors don't have a chance, but I think it's going to be tough for Toronto. They proved a lot of people wrong, showing how good they were this year without Kawhi Leonard, something I think a lot of people didn't see coming. But now we're going to see what Raptors fans have seen in the past, what it's like being in the playoffs without a true superstar. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They have some of the best depth, talent 1 through 6, 1 through 7. I'm not sure there's a team better, but they don't have, Pascal Siakam hasn't become that true number one in a way that LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard or Giannis Antetokounmpo is. So my money, if I were a betting man, would be on one of those teams, the Clippers, the Lakers, or the Bucks, because they have that true number one. But if Pascal Siakam comes back after this break in a way that he has in off seasons past and takes another step in his development and has kind of reached that superstar status, then who am I to count the Raptors out? Because they can for sure contend with the best teams, as we saw in the regular season. The question now is, can they contend with kind of the top tier of the NBA?
And then my final question for you is, how do you think the restart will look, and what do you think? What are you most looking forward to watching play out once we get going again at the end of July?
Well, I think the first thing is making sure that safety is paramount for everyone. We want to make sure that nobody gets sick, and if anyone gets sick, that they are taken care of, that they are removed from everyone else for the safety of everyone, and that they hopefully don't have serious symptoms or symptoms at all. So obviously safety, in my opinion, is number one. But as for how things are going to look, I think they're going to look very different. There's not going to be fans. Things are going to sound different. It sounds like players will be protesting before games, maybe after games. Sounds like players might have where their last names on the jerseys would be. They might have words or symbols, probably to support some of the protests that have been happening in the world in the wake of George Floyd's killing. So those are the things I expect to see. And those are the things I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see, obviously, just basketball get back to being played, something that basketball fans have not seen in months now. And then how the players adapt. This could be very weird. Is there going to be an asterisk with whoever wins the championship? That's not for me to say. I would say no. But those conversations are going to keep coming up. And it'll really come down to how weird things are when the season returns. And hopefully everyone stays safe and we can conclude the season in a reasonable and respectable manner.
Hey, Aaron, we want to take a few minutes to thank you for appearing on the show and talking a little bit about the NBA, Vince Carter's retirement, and the Raptors as a whole. We enjoyed your insight and perspective, and we want to thank you for your time this afternoon.
For sure. Thank you so much.